Hello everyone. In this video I'm just going to have a talk about what I've built. So most of my other videos have been very short tutorials. This will be slightly longer. I'm just going to talk about what I've built and how I did it. Now, I've been using Rust plus Axum. If you're new or learning Rust and you want to build an API, then I really recommend the Jeremy Choan videos if you haven't already seen them. The Axum one is especially good. I recommend actually following that step by step rather than clicking on the GitHub link and copying the code and whatever. So this is using Guillaume Equine Rust Bert. So it's here. It's crate Rust_Bert, ready to use NLP pipelines and transformer-based models. Now you can use his code and you can modify it to substitute in your own models. So if you're familiar with Hugging Face, you get a Hugging Face, get your model or identify the model name that you want to use. For instance, here, all mini LM L12 V2, I've actually used L6 V2. So generate sentence embeddings, vector representation. I'll get onto vectors in a minute because that links up with quadrant. So you basically vectorize your sentence, which is not only the data that you put in, you also need to vectorize your query. So here you can see model encode sentences. So you're encoding what you put in, that gets subserted to the vector database, and then you do a similarity search based on your encoded question to try and match that against the encoded vectors. I've used ChatGPT quite a bit. I'll talk more about that in a second. So quadrant. Many of you may have come across Pinecone if you've been watching Python videos. I obviously run the Python 360 channel. If you use Python with Pinecone, it's very straightforward. I've already built my site called findthatbit.com, which I'll show you. I've built that that's just using Python and Quadrant. So what I wanted to do was actually use Quadrant with Rust and try and encode the query using Rust. I thought the benefit of that would be that multi-threading would make it a lot quicker. However, reading this further down, it actually says that the time difference is not enormous. I can't find where I read it. It's on this page somewhere, but the time difference isn't enormous. There we go. For simple pipelines, sequence classification, tokens classification, question answering, performance between Python and Rust is expected to be comparable. This is because most of the expensive part of the pipeline, of these pipelines, is the language model itself sharing a common implementation in the Torch backend. The end-to-end NLP pipelines in Rust provides a benchmark section covering all the pipelines. For text generation tasks, so summarization, translation, conversion, free text generation, significant benefits can be expected up to 2 to 4 times faster processing depending on the input and application. So yeah, it depends which of so there's 12 different disciplines here that you could look to do with Rust_Bert. All fairly self-explanatory if you've delved into NLP at all. So I'm not going to go over that. Right, quick start quadrant. I just want to show you how I went about. I had to upsert the data using Python. I didn't have to, but I'd already written some code in Python, so I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. Bring this back up. So basically it's using upsert, and I'm upserting a collection. I'll just zoom in on this. In fact, I could just get rid of that. So here you can see I'm just doing client upset on line 67, which is quadrant syntax. And we're upsetting multiple points. So a point is basically a collection of, or it's a combination of an ID, a vector, and a payload. So the vector is basically a list of the vectors. The payload is, let me show you the payload. Payload is basically it's not a list of JSON, but it's a sequence of, it's a whole load of, let me just show you. It's a whole load of JSON, but it's not a list because there's no square bracket at the start, no square bracket at the end, and there's no commas in between. So I was reluctant to call it a list. And here is the Rust code. So again, I'm not going to really go into putting up links or sharing it or anything because it's probably not high quality, but it works. So Docker run. The thing is with running it with Rust, just remember you need to use gRPC. When you use Python, or when I was using Python, I was just using HTTP. I'll show you the difference. So quadrant upserter. You see this on line 24. Quadrant client URL HTTP. When I used Rust, let me go down. Where is it? It's down here on line 100. Actually, it's using 6334, but it's actually saying HTTP as well. My bad. Anyway, when you fire it up, you will see that port 6334. There you go, 6334. So if you go to GitHub, you can find all of the Rustbert examples. This is my code, sorry. So we'll go back to Guillaume's code. And he's also put the instructions on there for how to install PyTorch, because you will need to install PyTorch, even though we're dealing with Rust, because PyTorch installs some of the shared objects, shared object files. It's a bit further down. Here we go. So manual installation. You'll need to. He doesn't explicitly say that this here, but what you need to do is get this. This works. This is what I used. So I don't know when he last updated this. Quite recently, last month. Cool. So yeah, wget followed by that URL. And once you've got that, you just copy, it's a zip file, copy the zip file to, I copied mine to USR bin, unzipped it. So here where it says path to libtorch, copy that line onto your terminal. And then, let me show you. So you'll be doing this, just do it one line at a time. And then instead of path 2, I did USR bin. So the next thing after doing that, you need to run the other line, which is that which relies on you having done the first line properly. So if you clone Guillaume's repo, you can run, obviously there's a big selection of, you saw the 12 different types of pipelines. Yeah, I chose to use the, what did I use? So sentence embeddings, because I wanted to embed the sentences so that they could go into the quadrant vector store, vector database, so that I could then make queries. If you've not seen the overall concept of what I'm doing here, let me show you with my site. So this has got Python, Nginx, Fast API, obviously then JavaScript. So if you search for Bitcoin mining, it finds videos on YouTube with the actual start times of those videos of when this topic is being discussed. Not the keyword, the actual topic. So if I put in, let's try seaside property, and there we go, beachfront property and Florida, beach. So even though I put in seaside, this is a semantic search. So beach is still very, very relevant. So that's why it's the top or why these are the top results. So you've got beach and beach, even though we search for seaside. So that just shows that it's not searching on keywords. So semantic search is very powerful. And yeah, just a quick note on using ChatGPT. I used it quite a lot today, partly because I've got a bit rusty because I've not been doing Rust a great deal recently, but it was useful. However, it did start leading me up a few, how should we say, cul-de-sacs, a few blind alleys, and it was starting to get me trying to get me to use ARC, which is atomic reference count, which you don't need. I didn't need. It was trying to get me to use lifetimes, but again, it's trying to fix if you start off with bad ideas, it will try and make the best of a bad idea. So where possible, always, or my idea is always backtrack and go back to, once it starts trying to put in lifetimes and so on, I just backtrack and then I try and ask it to kind of solve a simpler version of the code. But just to let you know, it does work okay, and obviously, even though it was only trained in 2021, it's still, yeah, it still did the job. It still helped me. It still allowed me to get my code working. So, yeah, that's it. I hope this is kind of just giving you a flavour for what you can do after kind of, I don't know, probably if I added all the days and the hours together, it's probably more like 2 or 3 months learning. So yeah, after 2 or 3 months learning Rust, with kind of a bit of a background in Python, you can start writing APIs. The other thing I haven't done here, so this is using Axum. The other thing I could do is go and use, I forget the name of the library, but you can add a Swagger interface to give you a nice open API. You have to be careful what you say that. Open API, not Open AI, Open API GUI. So yeah, Quadrant plus Axum. There we go. I'll be back with some tutorials soon. Thanks for watching.